Welcome to Kalamazoo Lively Arts, the show that takes you inside Kalamazoo's vibrant, creative community and explores the people who breathe life into the arts.
Support for Kalamazoo Lively Arts is provided by the Irving S. Gilmore Foundation, helping to build and enrich the cultural life of Greater Kalamazoo.
I'm John Koch here at the historic Kalamazoo State Theatre. On today's show, we will talk to world-renowned artist Kirk Newman as he transitions into retirement. And we learn about the intricate art of Japanese woodblock printmaking with Mary Brodbeck. But first, we take a deeper look into the history of the iconic Kalamazoo State Theatre.
So, Stephanie, now we're entering the second level where you have the mezzanine and the balcony, and I think what people see when they come up here is the incredible skies and the stars. What about the statues?
The statues are a part of the feeling of the atmospheric ambiance of the Spanish courtyard that you see. You'll notice a lot of different grotesques is what they're technically called.
Like grotesque because they're ugly?
I know, this guy over here, I don't want to point him out, but...
Not the most attractive person.
Not the most attractive grotesque we have here, but they say grotesques are statues within the building, but gargoyles are those that are outside and have water coming out of them. But yeah, you'll see that it adds to the ambiance with the lighting and the ceiling or the roof, the Spanish roof tiles. And it's interesting because every time you walk in here, you notice something different. And in fact, I just did right now. You'll see the pieces on below the Spanish tiles. They have statues of little people holding them up. I didn't notice that before. And then there's the decorative lighting. Now we've put red on the lights that are closest to the stage because we don't want to detract from what's going on with the performance, but we still want to show off the details of what is there. So we have the lighter bulbs.
And this really hasn't changed since 1927.
No.
With the statues and the lighting and everything else that makes this so unique.
We've done pretty much no changes. we have no changes. Anything that we need to do for safety, we've made sure to implement. But we're working very hard to preserve the architecture in here. So the Kalamazoo State Theatre is a historic atmospheric theater built in 1927. The architect is John Eberson. He's an internationally known architect from Chicago. And the building was originally built as a movie palace and a vaudeville house for the Butterfield family. And they had a chain of movie theaters. The idea of having it as an atmospheric theater is as soon as you walk in the door, you're supposed to feel like you're in a different place. And you do. With all the different plaster detail. And this particular Eberson theater was designed to look like a Spanish courtyard. So when you walk in particularly into the auditorium, you see the stars in the sky and the statues. And when it was first built, there were different gardens along the walls and in the lobbies too.
So, Stephanie, this is where the organ is kept. Under this covering so we can protect it.
Yes, we don't have the organ exposed during shows, and so in the crazy times of concerts, we try to keep it under here. So a lot of people don't even know that this is here because we have covered it to protect it. And this could make every sound that was necessary for the silent film.
When you say the organ makes every sound, what do you mean, every sound?
If there was a doorbell, this organ would play the doorbell.
No kidding.
If there was bird song, it would come from here. And what happens is you touch the key and it relays a message to a blower that's in a room that's locked downstairs. and that blower will send air to the different pipes. And I mentioned the different pipes, they're in these 2 organ chambers. So this looks only decorative, but behind there are just banks of, that's where most of the instruments are. And here it's mostly the pipes. Human voice that could play song, and the tom-tom and the xylophone would all be relayed from pushing a key or a pedal on the console.
So it's kind of like an old-time synthesizer. When you hear synthesizers today, you know, doing all those types of sounds like drums or whatever, this was really doing the same thing in 1927.
Yes.
And it's funny because everybody has a story about how they would sneak in, you know, off a level. I had somebody else tell me they'd sneak in from the fire escape. But, you know, their face lights up. The faces light up when they have these memories. They'll have their first date or their first kiss. I remember coming here as a kid, and I remember seeing the clouds and the stars, and I really thought I was outside, and I didn't know where I was. I remember that my dad took me here, and it was this really cool place. And now coming back, I understand where that memory's from. It's a place where people gather. It's a place where you go to have that feeling of escapism, to have a good time. I mean, that's the point, for everybody to just have a good time. And you can tell. The artist has a great time, and the audience has a great time. And I love being a part of that. It's the overall experience, and I love being a part of that, and I love the impact it has on Kalamazoo, too.
You know, Janis Place is both intimate and huge, but it's really a part of Kalamazoo history, built in the 1920s, and yet it's still here.
That's what's amazing about this beautiful theater, is that it is still here, and it looks almost exactly the way it looked back in the 1920s, with the statues and the organ and the sky, which you can't see right now because obviously, like with an older house, the upkeep, and so you have things that need to be repaired and need to be, you know, kept up. But for the most part, it's just gorgeous. And the big thing right now is what they're trying to do is it's not air conditioned. So for this theater to be able to operate for 12 months out of the year rather than just, you know, in the fall and winter, they are really hoping that they can modernize and put some air conditioning in so that people can enjoy this theater, you know, 365 days a year.
Okay, what's the story on the ghosts? Seriously, we understand a
Do you hear anything?
paranormal crew.
Do you see anything? Do you hear
actually
anything behind you? Yes.
Spent the night. I'm a little nervous now.
I know,
sitting
really.
in the dressing room.
The people that work here really are adamant that this place is inhabited by spirits. And that's not a bad thing, you know, like not necessarily they're coming after you with a knife or anything, but they hear footsteps or they hear somebody behind them and they turn around and there's nobody there. So it's very interesting whether they're old performers or people who were living in the audience and are still kind of here, but very fascinating story, and a paranormal crew that was here wants to come back because they really feel this place is special and they want to see again.
Wow, well, it really is a special place. Thank you very much for that. Next, Kirk Newman's longtime friend, Christopher Markin, sits down with the Kalamazoo-based artist on the last day in his studio to relive his artwork over the years.
Growing up in my home, I was so fortunate to be surrounded by so many visions of beauty from different artists from around the world in different times, different eras, different styles. But if there was one constant, it was Kirk Newman. And he fused a lot of those periods and a lot of those artists together.
Yeah, now that Kirk's retired, it's just not the same without him. It's a lot less. You know, it's you know, the magic's gone to a certain extent. You know, there's not going to be anyone else like him. You know, he's really has one foot, you know, in the modern era and one foot in that real tradition, the real traditional, you know, sculptor. So yeah, we'll miss him a lot.
Well, hi, my name's Christopher Markin. I'm here in Kalamazoo, Michigan with one of my dearest friends, oldest friends of my family, artist Kirk Newman. Kirk, take a bow.
Yeah, that's me.
That's you.
Yeah.
Well, I can't believe that I actually have the opportunity to sit next to you and discuss.
You're a lucky guy.
I am a lucky guy. The life of your work and how it's evolved and where it came from. Could you tell us
Well, to start with, you read it exactly right.
Huh.
And I know that a lot of people don't get it or care about a lot of the stuff I've made, but I always thought what I was doing was probably just right.
I'd agree with you.
Like that drawing. Yeah. Yeah, see, that looks just right to me. Now, a lot of folks wouldn't think that looks so good, but
I disagree.
that sums up a lot of, I think, what my work's always been about, and that is the total frustration and confusion that so many of us hold inside but have to deal with all the time. So I made a drawing showing that he's dealing with an awful lot there. He's even late to work, but he does have his tie on, even though it's just a space. So it's the kind of the contradiction of everything that ends up in a lot of my drawings.
You know, I've always noticed a theme, several themes in your work as it's progressed, but one that's always jumped out at me were the use of holes.
Yeah.
Tell me about that, because as we pan around and you see...
At one point, I realized that the holes in things is pretty natural, because that's the way the world is. Sometimes they're very minute and you can't even see them, but still they're full of holes. All of reality is a matter of holes and not holes. Not K-N-O-T, but, you know, not. And that's what this is. That's why those are that way. And the hands up thing is one of the oldest gestures that man can make. That and the defensive arm gesture that we all learned from total history of man.
And then we come to this one that also has the holes.
Well, that guy's in a tough spot. Yeah, he'd been hit pretty hard.
It looks like he's got some bullets coming at him.
And today, you know, the holes in things is just part of the life out there. There's wars here, wars there, wars everywhere, and everybody's full of holes because they've been shot a lot. Fortunately, it isn't total.
Whether by bullets or lies, we all been shot at.
Yeah.
Kirk has an amazing sense of humor. It takes an educated eye and consciousness to pick up on it. But once you do, you got it. And you see it everywhere. Kirk got that. The fact that he captured that, the essence of what it is to be human, whether it be through the darkness of his earlier pieces, evolving into the shadow figures, to the whimsy, to the playful, it all makes me smile. I don't think I could have asked for any bigger gift in life than that. And that's the company of Kirk. This guy, for example.
Yeah, that's a pretty summary piece, and it's a fairly young one. Early in the development of the work, but this hat is so realistic.
It really is. It's a familiar looking hat.
But I always have liked the idea of the negative space. This piece has a lot of negative space, the back and the front. You can see it's basically a very thin piece, and yet it doesn't need to be filled out to work as a moving figure, and I just like it a lot.
Looking back at the life of your work, I'm always drawn back to some of your earlier stuff from the 1960s, early 1960s, all the way through the 70s, which were more full-bodied, figurative work.
Well, I made some very realistic sculpture. You
did indeed, and your drawings, there's a lot of the element of desperation, like the fallen man, not knowing what to do when all he can do is either give up or get up.
I know that out there in the world, there's a lot of desperation. You see all these cars lined up every morning, every night. That's a lot of desperation.
Sure is.
I want to get the hell home, you know.
It is.
I want to get to work.
I go see him every once in a while. I love being in his company, and George's as well, in this stage in life just as all the others. But what brings me the most pleasure is to know that he doesn't know how to retire. But like he said, maybe it's time to stop doing the commercial stuff, but I don't think he'll ever stop drawing, creating, and recording what he sees. It's really something special, and my biggest hope is that people will also get it. Everyone never will, but as long as a few people get it, and they will, there'll be a twinkle in their eye, and they'll know. That's what he was after. And there's a lot of it in all of us, whether it be the seriousness, the desperation, the tension that we feel, the hotness of a deadline, or just the whimsy of liking to dance like no one's watching. Kirk captures that. And to be able to be part of that and to grow up through that has been nothing short of an honor, and it makes me feel complete. One that's always been dear to my heart, and everyone that lives in Southwest Michigan, would have to be the party in front of the KIA.
I like it. I think it's one of the best things I've made. And those are all life-size figures. And I was happy with the piece, and I think there are 12, a row of 12 figures.
Mm-hmm.
The very day it was dedicated, they had a big crowd there. I'd say a third to half of the people there thought this is the ugliest thing they'd ever seen, and they wanted it torn down. They say, we can't have that here in front of our art center.
Were those the members of the board?
Yeah, and other people that just, they didn't get it at all.
Did any of them look at it and go, that figure looks familiar?
There was one in there of a guy I knew really well, and the expression is, he's giving you the bird. You've heard that term?
I have.
Well, he's in there, the bird's on his arm.
That was a great, that to this day is one of my favorite pieces. It greets you.
I think because I'd built that is how I got the job going in Hong Kong, because a Chicago person that was working for Hilton saw the work here and said, there's nothing like that in Hong Kong, why don't we do it? So that's how I got involved in that. And then, because other people had seen that work, I got other jobs that I didn't take, some of them, but I did take the one in Toronto. It has 21 figures, and it's quite realistic.
That was a really tough one on you, as I recall. That really took a
Yeah,
lot out of you.
I was tired of doing stuff, and I was getting a little older. I think I was about 75. No, I wasn't quite that old, but
Middle age.
I was getting a little older.
I was just so happy when it was done.
Yeah,
I remember.
Yeah.
I remember, because the first thing I remember you doing, you were drawing again.
Yeah, well, that's where it is. That's where the fun is.
It's my greatest pleasure and personal accomplishment knowing Kirk when he looked at me and he said, you know, you get it. And I hope he knows how important that one single statement was to me and is to me to this day and forever will be, because to get it is really something special, and to be part of his life, to be in his orbit, so to speak, was always such a privilege and such an honor. I look forward to his next step. I don't know what other people think, but I know for a fact that he's going to go home and sit next to his wife, Georgia, and he's probably going to be drawing.
For our third segment tonight, Shelly Irwin uses ink and wood to make art with Mary Brodbeck.
I'm an artist, and I produce Japanese woodblock prints. Japanese woodblock printmaking became part of my life in the 1990s. And in college, I majored in industrial design and became a furniture designer, and I worked in the West Michigan furniture industry for many years. My interest in the landscape and nature is the whole reason I am an artist. Eventually, the landscape sort of spoke to me, and so I just followed my heart and decided to become a landscape artist.
Mary, I am ready to learn the art of printmaking. Take it away.
All right, well, I'm very excited to show you. I've got 2 blocks here. They're already ready to print. They've been carved and printed before, so they already have ink on them. But where you start is with the design, and this is what this is here.
These 4 prints.
Right. This is the design or the pattern that you start with. But this is what a finished block looks like. Wow. You carve away the non-image area so that what gets printed is raised up.
Yes.
And that's what gets inked. And then the paper goes in the same paper shelf as the pattern
that you've carved out.
Right. When I was in graduate school, some of the teachers there saw something in me that maybe I would be interested in studying in Japan. So it was suggested to me by professors at Western Michigan University, and they make connections for me to study with a teacher in Japan, Yoshisuke Funisaka. Learning this process in Japan was a total immersion. So I was immersed in the culture, I was immersed in the language, in the food, and it was really kind of overwhelming. What is unique about the Japanese method is the water-based inks, and it looks unique from any other art form. To me, it's very clean, and it's subtle, and it's smooth, and it's quiet. Okay, I'm gonna take my water bottle, and I'm gonna dampen the brush a little bit. And I'm gonna get the paper, or I'm going to moisten the block.
raised, concentrating on the raised, right?
Right. Can you hear it?
I can hear it.
That's part of the process.
Wow, the sounds.
Yeah,
the sound of art.
Yep, absolutely.
Step one.
So I'm gonna put on the gray ink. And this is, like I mentioned, the color mover brush. So that's just putting the material onto the block.
Okay, there's our paper.
Okay, then you hold onto the paper with sort of like they call it a scissor grip. So this looks like a pair of scissors here. And you put your thumb down in the corner like that, and your other thumb on that edge, and you just drop it down. Then you put this over the top, so it becomes a little bit smoother to rub, and you rub the back like this.
You're pressing.
Yes, I'm pressing.
Printmaking. Yeah.
Right. The real benefit of my work is that I get to be in the landscape and feel really connected to it. And that's what I like about being an artist, and that's what inspires me. That is what has inspired me for many years. This is the same exact process that people have been using for hundreds of years. Unlike digital media, where the software continually changes, the equipment continually changes. Okay, so that's the second block over there.
So replace this with this?
Right.
Okay, good.
And you might notice that this is a non-skid cupboard liner.
So this shouldn't move.
Right.
Okay.
So when you rub on this, it stays solid.
Stay solid.
Right.
Great.
Well, like we did with the other block, we have to get it a little bit
moist.
Right.
The raised material is our key here, correct?
Correct.
In kindergarten, they didn't think I was very artistic. I had other talents, but like you. Okay, good. There we are.
All right. Now, you need to pick up that other brush, the one you were just using, this one.
Okay.
And you mix it around. Yeah, you like
staying again on the raised area, right?
Right. And I'm going to grab this same piece of paper.
Okay, help me with this.
All right. Do you want to try to put it in the?
With your help.
Okay.
So put it in the
remember
area.
the scissor grip? This corner first. Here, and then there, down. There we go. There. Then this on there, and now you try to hold this flat. Hold it flat, not on an angle. Flat, like this.
And I'm pressing. What's next?
Why don't you pull it off?
With your help?
All right, pull it up like this.
Oh, I feel.
What do you think?
I feel perfection. Mary, that's wonderful.
That's it. Yeah.
That's it, isn't it?
Yes, that's it.
How long do you let it dry?
It can just air dry at this point, and it depends on the humidity. It could dry in 10 minutes or maybe 20 minutes.
Wow.
Yep, that's it.
There we go. Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome.
Shelly described Mary's art for us.
It's called Japanese Woodblock Printing, and boy, there is attention to detail in this art. She actually spent a lot of time in Japan with an artist that certainly knew his job inside and out, and I got to do a little of this art. Using ink and wood, I made my own print and talk about the attention to detail. It took me a couple takes to make it work.
Yeah, it looks very precise. And I understand there's also a documentary out there.
Yep, that's the other hat that she wears. The documentary is called Becoming Made. It's somewhat of her own memoir, where she took a look at her own art making process and certainly uses it now for education and documenting the journey that she's been on as an artist.
Interesting journey, interesting artist. Thank you very much, Shelly. And thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Kalamazoo Lively Arts. Next week, we explore the treasure trove of history at the Gilmore Car Museum. Visit Brent Harris, a sculptor who worked closely with Kirk Newman. And Shelly taps into the world of beat making with Monteith Jordan. From the Kalamazoo State Theatre, I'm John Koch. Have a good night.
Support for Kalamazoo Lively Arts is provided by the Irving S. Gilmore Foundation, helping to build and enrich the cultural life of Greater Kalamazoo.